Hi, my name is David Ian Heredia, and this is my reading reflection blog on Their Eyes Are Watching God. I'm going to be talking about the historical context of which this book was released. But before I discuss that, I want to talk about the book itself. Now, the book itself, I think, is wonderful. Wonderful book. I mean, I'm surprised on how much I liked it. I came into it thinking, oh, it's just another English class book that I'm going to be forced to read. And I was skeptical on what I was going to think about it, but as I read on, I realized how organized the book, the diction, the way the characters interact with each other and how they speak is very unique. I've never seen that before. The story of Janie, the main character, growing from childhood, adolescence to adulthood, and how she kind of gains control of her own life, is kind of refreshing, and I've never seen that done before. The way also the book takes place in Florida, and I've lived in North Carolina most of my life. It kind of feels like very much a love letter to kind of the setting of the American South. That's enough about my personal thoughts on it. Now I want to get into the main purpose of this video, which is the historical context of this book, and why is it so important when looking at this book. If you've been to a high school English class before, you probably already know where I'm going, but you've read kind of books like The Great Gatsby and Animal Farm and To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, those books you read in high school, not because they're well written, which they are well written, but not just because of that, because the context, the historical context, and what was going on socially and politically during the time at which those books were written, really makes those books stand out. And the historical context is very much an important part to what makes a text great. I mean, for example, take a look at The Great Gatsby. It was written in the 20s, and this was a time, the 20s were a time of, great economic boom. I mean, the World War had just ended, and people were having a great old time. And The Great Gatsby is kind of a criticism of kind of this American materialism, this American focus on wealth, and it's very much a criticism of the American upper class. Animal Farm as well is very much influenced by historical context. I mean, they had the Cold War, and Animal Farm is very much a criticism of Stalin's communist system. To Kill a Mockingbird also reflects the racial tensions of the historical time period it was written in, and it very much explores those racial prejudices, those racial tensions in the United States. Zora Hurston's book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, is, the historical context is the 1920s, 1930s. Not only do you have, like I mentioned before, economic boom in this time, you also have a bunch of black people that lived in the United States South moving to the United States northern states like New York. And this big immigration causes kind of a boom of literature, specifically in Harlem, called the Harlem Renaissance. You have, artists like Langston Hughes, Countee Cullen, and Zora Neale Hurston exploring, black identity. What does it mean to be black in the United States? What does it mean to, what is the role of black people in the United States? What is a black identity? And the Harlem Renaissance very much is a rejection of traditional kind of more white literature. You see that reflected in Zora Neale Hurston's diction, the way she writes these characters talking. They talk in a very much black Southern dialect. The whole setting of the book is also probably an example of kind of this Harlem Renaissance attitude, where the whole half of the book takes place in Eatonville, which is the first all-black principality or municipality or kind of city in the United States. And this focus on, black Americans really reflects the historical context of the Harlem Renaissance at this time, which is probably why this book was banned for being too black. The Harlem Renaissance was also about bringing black characters and black artists into the limelight. Before the Harlem Renaissance, black characters were kind of more delegated to be servant type characters or slave characters or crook characters. and never were they really depicted as people, which is not what you see at all in this book. I mean, Zora Neale Hurston's work as an anthropologist also comes through here. These black characters in this book are depicted as, well, as black characters, black people, instead of kind of more the stereotype. They're still exaggerated characters for the purpose of, storytelling, but they're very much people you could probably imagine actually exist. So in all, this book really does feel like it was influenced by, the Harlem Renaissance of the time. It very much feels like a rejection of traditional Western, white kind of literature, where it's written in kind of this black dialect, and it takes place in an all-black kind of state, or all-black city, I mean, and kind of explores themes of female independence, female sexuality that is never done before, and it also explores what it means to be black in the United States and what it means to be a woman in the United States. And that's what makes this book kind of ahead of its time. And we wouldn't have known this if we hadn't explored historical context. Given the historical context of this book, it really makes this book make a little bit more sense, and also makes it more understanding of why Zora Neale Hurston made the decisions she made.